What you guys, got another video here for you. Now I get asked all the time about computers and what is a good sort of budget computer to play AAA listed games at 1080p. So I thought I'd make a video to show you a machine that you can build at a pretty cheap affordable price, which is around about $500-ish or 500-ish pounds, and it's going to be able to play AAA listed titles at 1080p with at least 60 frames per second. And this is what you want to be aiming for, to have an enjoyable experience when you're playing games. Now you can play PUBG, you can play Apex Legends, you can play Battlefield 5, anything you want to do with this particular type of build. It is going to be brand new and you will be able to put it together and pretty much have a really nice enjoyable experience when playing those games. Now you can still buy these components pretty cheap, and we'll take a look at the specs right now. So if you have a look at the specs here, we've gone for a Ryzen 5 1600 AF version. You won't see a price on there, but I will give you a rough idea. It's around about 80-ish pounds or 80-ish dollars. And if you get around to getting this, you can see the price comes in at $475.49. So if you add that processor on there, it's just over the $500 mark. If we convert this to British pounds, you can see that comes in around about £87, and the case here is around about £45 down there, which is not listed here. And you can see that will bring that up to around about, you know, just under £500, and you're getting an RX 570 8GB card with that, which is going to be plenty to play games. We'll go through more detail about the parts that I've chosen for this build, so you'll be able to go along and pick these parts. I'll leave the links for these in the video description. Now we've chosen the Ryzen 5 1600 AF version, which is the 65 watt AM4 processor with the Wraith stealth cooler included. This is 6 cores, 12 threads. You can overclock this. It is hyper-threading, and again you do have that frequency of 3.20, but the turbo will go up to 3.60 gigahertz if you wanted to use that. But a pretty decent processor for gaming. Now for the motherboard, we've gone for the Gigabyte B450 Aorus M. This is a MicroATX motherboard. At this sort of price point, all of them are pretty much MicroATX motherboards, but this is a really nice motherboard. You've got your M.2 on there, which means you can drop in an NVMe drive at a later date if you want. You've also got 4 slots for your RAM, so if you wanted to upgrade RAM, you can do at a later date as well. Nice small form factor motherboard, pretty decent for what you need. Again, we've gone for the T-Force RAM here. This is the Vulcan Z. This was the cheapest sort of RAM I could find, and again, if you live in the States, you're going to get a bit more of a benefit. $76.99 for this RAM. A bit more pricey in the UK, so you might be able to find something a little bit cheaper, but aim for 16 gigabytes and also aim for a minimum of 3200 megahertz, and you should be pretty much good to go. If you can find cheaper, by all means go for that. Now again, we've had to take into account the cost here, so we've gone for an ADATA SU630. Again, this is only a 240 gigabyte SSD, but when you're playing around at this sort of price point, there's not a lot you can do. If you've got the extra money, go for a bigger drive, go for an M.2 type NVMe drive if you can afford it, but if you can't, then you're going to have to go with something like this, and then maybe drop in a mechanical drive for all of your games if that's what you've got to do to keep the cost down. Now we've gone for an XFX Radeon RX 570. In the list, I'd managed to get an 8GB version because the costs come down, but in here I've got it listed as a 4GB version, but again around about $129.69 or around about the £109 mark, you can get one of these ones, which is a 4GB version. A little bit more will get you the 8GB version, but again it should be plenty enough for what you need. Now the Thermaltake Versa H18 MicroATX, I went with the MicroATX case because I wanted to try to use that board in there so there isn't a big gap at the bottom and it looks horrible. This is quite an affordable case. Again, really with cases, it's all personal choice. Just try and find something around this sort of price point and you will be able to keep still within that £500 or $500 threshold, so it's still worth going for. power supply. Again, in the UK you can manage to pick up this 700 watt power supply, which is a silver rated power supply at £57.96. Do not cheap out on your power supplies. It is a modular power supply, which means you do be able to get that better cable management. Couldn't find this particular power supply in the US, but I got a similar one for around about $54.99. Just make sure it's 80 plus bronze certified and you're good to go. So looking at some benchmarks here, Fortnite is a pretty well played game. You can see a 1080p, high settings you can get close to 80 frames per second. Medium settings you can get over 100, and again low settings, which most people play on, you'll get way over 140 frames per second. So that's not too bad for a 1080p gaming machine. Again, I've put the 4K and the 2K specs up there if you want to check those out. Apex Legends, again looking at the high settings here, we can get over 80 frames, and also medium settings you can get over 100 frames, and low you can get right up near 150 frames, around that sort of area, just over. So pretty decent for this sort of machine. Moving on to one last more spec here I'll give you, which is Battlefield 5. So again, concentrating on the 1080p frame rates here, we have got high, which we can see this is about 90 odd frames, and again medium we're close to 120 frames, and low settings up to 160 frames on low settings for Battlefield 5. So depending on what you want to do here, I have listed up there the 2K and 4K frame rates up there as well. So all in all, a pretty decent gaming machine for you if you're looking to get into PC gaming and want something that plays AAA listed games. Then the RX 570 is still a pretty decent card if you can get one pretty cheap. Now you can also pick these up used as well if that's what you want to do, but the computer itself is plenty powerful to play all the games you want, and also it's plenty powerful to use Photoshop and do some video editing as well. So it's a pretty good all-round system. For around about $500 or £500 you're getting yourself a pretty nice computer. Now there's a lot of people out there that are still selling used parts for the same sort of prices as these brand new systems, so don't waste your money on those. Get yourself something like this and it will do you good for many years to come. And you can always upgrade the memory and upgrade the hard drive. I've only put in some basic specs there, but again you can tweak and manipulate this sort of spec to your own needs depending on how much money you have to spend. So if you've got an extra $100 or an extra £100, you can always add in some extra juicy parts like an NVMe drive or a bigger massive storage drive in there, like a 4TB or 2TB, depending on how much money you have. Now again, this is just a base system for you to work off of. If you find cheaper memory, as long as it's the same speed or faster, then you should be okay to buy that and swap it out with the RAM that I chose in this video. This was just the cheapest RAM that I could find at the time. If you have a little bit more money, you can always swap out that 240 gigabyte SATA drive there with an NVMe drive. Again, it's all down to how much money you have. If you can splash a bit more cash, you may want to treat yourself to a better graphics card, maybe an RTX 2060 or an RTX 2070. That power supply should be good enough to go. 700 watts should be plenty power for what you've got there. So that's why I've dropped that one into the system, so you can always upgrade to a better graphics card without sort of changing the power supply. So when you're buying a power supply, just make sure you're trying to get the best possible power supply or best branded power supply you can, with obviously certification, whether it's 80 plus bronze or higher. That will be great. Again, this is really important because if you cheap out on your power supplies and they blow, they sometimes can take all the components with you. If you see one for $10 or $20, don't buy it. It's not going to be good, and if it blows up, it's going to take all your components with it and your expensive graphics card. So just bear that in mind, okay? You're better off to spend that little bit extra on the power supply, because that is what's delivering clean, good power to all your components and to protect your system. So that's what I'd advise you to do. Other than that, I think that's going to be about it. I think we've covered just about everything in this video. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comment section below, or jump on our Discord server. I'd be more than happy to help you out over there. If you want to make some other changes to that and you want to ask some questions, you can always do that on the Discord server. My name has been Brian from briteccomputers.co.uk. Thanks again for watching, and thanks for your continued support. I shall see you again for another video tomorrow. Bye for now. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the red subscribe button and hit the bell notification button and click all to be notified when we upload new videos.